Okay, good. So, yeah, welcome. I hope you're all doing well. I am. I have this theme that I like to focus on during the spring semester of this course. There's not a whole lot of other stuff that I can teach you about project management that we didn't cover in the fall. I think we covered enough project management stuff in the fall, and I can't teach you anything technical. You guys are much more technically adept than I am, except maybe database stuff. But other than that, I don't know anything. And you know that. And I think you accept me the way I am, and you understand that I am not a super uber geek when it comes to software engineering. So anyway, you guys are the experts on that. So I have this theme of stuff that I want to try to include in some of our lectures this spring semester. And it's not stuff that you're going to be graded on by me. So as you can see, there's only a handful of people in this lecture tonight, and there's 205 people in this class. And I think most of them just don't care, and that's okay. This theme of, which is up on the screen now, of things that I wish someone would have told me when I was 22 and finishing college. I didn't have that opportunity. I didn't understand the importance of listening to mentors who might guide me and get me ready for the rest of my life after college. Okay. At the time, I wasn't interested anyway. I thought I knew everything and didn't humble myself to listen to other people who might be older and wiser. But anyway, in my 68 and a half years of life, I've learned some things. And tonight I want to present to you another pretty important set of principles and thoughts and ideas and concepts, things I've learned. And I wish I would have learned it when I was younger. So I'm sharing it with you as kind of a gift from me to you so that you can think about the stuff I'm talking about tonight and hopefully grab a hold of this and implement it in your life starting now. And don't wait until you're in your 40s or 50s to get started with this stuff. Because if you listen and pay attention and really try to take this stuff in and learn it and put it into practice, it will change your life. I promise. And it took me many years to get to the point where I realized, oh, this can change my life. And so these things I'm sharing with you tonight are things that I learned when I was much later in my career, yet they proved to be very valuable. I'm going to turn on another light so you get a better image. Not that my image is anything worth getting excited about, but at least it's good to have the light on. Okay, so anyway, what I'm talking about tonight is really about listening. Well, that might sound dumb, right? Listening is just something, people talk and I listen. Okay, what's the big deal? How can you make a lesson out of that? Well, stay tuned and I will try. So I'm just going to ask you to please, you listen to me as I'm talking about listening. Please listen to me and think about the truth of what I'm telling you, and think about, are there any of these little things that I'm mentioning that maybe you can put into practice and really take a quantum leap in improving your professional life. Okay. Now, it may even expand into things beyond your professional life, like your family life or your relationship life. Okay. And I think it will. So these are things that I've learned in my years and I've put into practice, and I want to share them with you in hopes that you can do the same. So this is not going to be a long presentation like the one I did on goal setting. That one took an hour, which man, I've gotten some good feedback from some of you about that presentation, and people who thought about it and enjoyed it have passed along the link to other people, and they said, this is great, you guys should listen to this. So I'm getting responses and feedback coming back to me from people that aren't in this class who have ended up watching that video lecture on goal setting. And they're saying, thanks, Alan, this really is a good thing, and I'm going to put it into practice. Same thing tonight about listening. So just hang in with me, and let's do this thing in about 40 minutes or so. And I'll bet you will find some interesting, powerful tidbits of knowledge that you can implement in your life and really make improvements. So I don't know if you remember this, but last fall, when we started this class, I said in lecture with you about this senior capstone project that you're going to find that the technical stuff of building software for your sponsor, that's one kind of challenge, but it's relatively easy to develop software compared to working with other people. And there's a lot of important lessons that I hope you're learning about working with other people, about being part of a team. It's not easy. That's why, and I think I told you this in a lecture last fall about leadership, that's why people who are leaders get paid a lot more than people who are individual contributors, because those leadership skills from people who know how to work with other people, that is rare. And it's much more common to find individual contributors that have good tech skills. But it's very, very rare to find somebody with a good foundation of tech skills who also have good leadership skills. So there are a few of you going through this course this year, your senior capstone course, that in addition to building some software, you're learning about leading other people. And it's going to open wonderful doors for your future. As the economy is messed up and tech companies are laying off people, you need to figure out what you can do that sets you apart from the rest of the crowd. What have you got to offer an employer that makes you stand out compared to all the other applicants? Well, one of them is leadership. And if an employer is interviewing you and they detect that you know something about leadership by having been in this senior project capstone course and you've become a leader for your team, employers will recognize that, and it'll give you an advantage over the competition for landing a job when you graduate. So anyway, I've got some slides to go through to talk about that aspect of leadership that I call active listening. So hang in there and listen to me and see if this makes sense to you. It is kind of a paradox, isn't it, that the biggest pain in your project is probably not the technology that you're struggling to implement. It's probably the people. Now, it could be one or two people on your team. It could be your whole team. It could be your sponsor. And boy, I could tell you stories, which some of you know what I'm talking about, how difficult some sponsors are. So if you've got a good sponsor for your team, count your blessings, because it's not everybody does. And some sponsors are really difficult to work with, but they're people. And so you can see that there's a paradox. I like that word because it looks like my name. People can be your biggest headaches, but also if you learn some good leadership skills like active listening, being able to work well and be productive and gain success. If you can master some leadership skills that allow you to gain success with these difficult people, then you will discover something wonderful, that, yeah, people are a pain, but if I can do this and this and this and this, we can work together and achieve great success. So that's what I call the joy of leadership. And being a leader for about half of my career of 37 years, I got promoted into management. And the years after that were very joyful for me. There were a lot of difficult situations, but also a lot of job satisfaction and happiness that came from being a leader in industry. So I would urge you, if you're listening and you understand what I'm talking about, go for it, because it's rare. That skill of leadership is rare. So I got some slides here just to throw some facts and figures at you to get you thinking about this and why is this so important. So more than 600 businesses in this country with 50 to 500 employees, they were surveyed. They took a survey, and here's a link at the bottom that talks more about this data that they collected during the survey. But 63% of companies agree that retaining employees is harder than hiring them. Think about what that means. You know, people get into jobs and then they work and then they quit. They want to move on to a new job, a different job. And that's okay. It might be good for them. They'll get a raise, get a promotion, make more money, move to a new area. But people quit jobs. And when people quit a job, when somebody quits a job, it's a big bad impact on the company they're leaving. So it's good for companies to learn how to retain good employees. Okay. And 71% of executives in such a survey, they agree that keeping employees engaged, feeling engaged, is critical to the success of their organization. Keeping employees engaged. Well, what does that mean? People are excited to come to work. They're excited about their work. They're excited about their projects that they're working on. But that's a big, big challenge for leaders to keep people engaged. I see this as a teacher in school, as a professor. You know, a lot of students, like the 150 that aren't even here tonight, they're not really engaged. And I see this often with a lot of my students, that the students aren't very much engaged. And I don't know why. I think maybe they only care about their grade and they don't really care about the knowledge that they're gaining. You know, the grade goes on their transcript and it calculates their GPA, and they think that's important. And I guess it is, you know, it is. You don't want to flunk out of school, and people with higher GPAs can get better jobs maybe. But what about the knowledge that you could be learning, that you can carry with you all the rest of your life? Once you're out of school, your GPA doesn't matter. Once you're hired into a job, nobody cares about your GPA, but people do care about what you know. And if you know about employee engagement, that's going to really help you. So 69% of employees agree that they would work harder if they felt more appreciated, right? That makes sense, right? Maybe you've had a job where you had a good boss and you did feel appreciated. Maybe you've had a job where you had a bad boss and you didn't feel appreciated and you couldn't wait to quit. So what does employee engagement mean? This is a little definition. It's an emotional commitment the employee has to the organization. It really hurts companies when good people quit. And so someday you may be a leader in a company and you want to do all you can to make people want to not quit and keep them engaged. And that's why I'm going through all this tonight. Employee engagement increases productivity in the workplace. So companies with high employee engagement are 21% more profitable. Imagine that. Employee engagement improves morale in the workplace. And, you know, morale just, I guess, just means how happy are those people to be working there. Employee engagement reduces absenteeism. It drives leaders crazy in a company, in an organization, when you got stuff to do and people just don't come to work. Absenteeism. Sometimes they just don't show up. Sometimes they'll call in sick when they're not really sick. and they're just tired and they're not motivated and they don't want to work. So highly engaged workplaces see a 41% lower rate of absenteeism. Some people just don't care, and other people feel engaged. So I'm talking about active listening tonight because it is the single most effective way of maintaining good employee engagement. There's an interesting fact here that every time somebody quits, it costs the company about $5,000, which, that's if somebody's making $100,000 a year salary, that's 5% of their salary. That's pretty expensive. And if you've got a lot of turnover, the people come and you pay them $100,000 a year to work for you, and they quit after a few months because they don't feel engaged. They feel like nobody cares about them. That's very, very expensive for that company to have that high rate of turnover. You lose $5,000 each time an employee walks out the door. That's an average, but you get the idea, right? Can I give you one simple example? You all are aware that I have moved up into the mountains and I live on a farm with my wife, and we do a little bit of kind of farming kind of activity. Some people call it a hobby farm because it's not my main source of trying to make income, but we do farming stuff. Like we have chickens. We raise chickens. We get eggs from our chickens. And these days, that's really worth a lot of money to be able to get eggs from your own chickens. And they've been laying all winter. Just today, we have 22 hens, okay? No roosters. And we got 15 eggs from these hens. And, it's cold here and it's snow, and they just stay in the barn and in a chicken coop, and we feed them and they lay eggs. All right, so we have to have farming supplies. And there's 2 farm supply stores where I live. There's one called IFA and there's one called Big R. And maybe you've heard of either of these stores. I don't know, it doesn't really matter. We go there to buy chicken feed and other stuff that we need to run our egg operation. And there's a really, really marked difference between the employees at IFA and at Big R. Although sometimes the prices might be lower at Big R because they're a big nationwide chain, but the people that work there are not happy to be working there at the one that I go to. Maybe not all Big R's are that way. I don't know. But the people are not helpful. And I walk in as a customer and I want to buy something. They don't try to help me. They ignore me. And I have to go ask for help. And the people don't smile. And they're not very friendly. And they don't engage in any kind of conversation about the stuff I'm trying to buy. And it's sad. I think it's sad. And if I was the manager of that store, I would recognize that my employees are not engaged. IFA, on the other hand, they're like family. You walk in and they know my name. I know their names. They smile, small talk, chit chat. They help me find whatever it is I'm looking for. They'll go walk over with me and we'll look at stuff and talk about it. It's just a really big difference, right? Between engaged employees and employees that don't care and don't give a hoot. So anyway, how does that happen? Well, one part of it is active listening from their leaders. How can I, if I'm a leader of a software development team or salespeople at the IFA farm store, how can I help my people feel engaged? A big, big part of that is all about communication, right? And communication must be intentional, right? If you just take the default of, well, whatever communication happens, and just let it, what they call that laissez-faire, let it be. Communication will be unsuccessful and unhelpful if you are not intentional about communicating. And you can actually learn good communication skills, one of which I'm talking about tonight, active listening. And you can actually practice communication. I don't know if you've ever done this before, but I learned to do this in my career, that if I know I have an important meeting with somebody where it's up to me to try to influence them, to get them to agree to let me do something that I want to do, I need to practice. And so anytime I'm communicating to somebody about something important, I practice. I rehearse so that I know what I'm going to say in advance. And I go in prepared, and I execute my communication plan to say what I want to say. Now, I've actually tried to bring this into some of your teams, where a team might come to me and say, Alan, we're having a problem with our sponsor. What can we do? My advice is usually, let's plan a communication strategy where we think about, okay, what do we need to tell our sponsor? Who can say what to the sponsor to keep them engaged? And so we form a communication strategy, or a communication plan. And a big part of that is about listening. And what happens if you don't communicate intentionally and effectively? Entropy kicks in. And entropy just means that things wind down into chaos. And communication will wind down into chaos if you're not careful about it, if you're not strategic about it, if you don't think in advance, oh, I need to communicate this. How can I communicate that? Make a little outline and practice, rehearse your communications. So active listening is a big part of that. So when we talk about communication, it's usually between one person and another, or one person and a group, right? Communication. And there's really two sides of that coin. It's like, if I'm communicating with you, I want you to understand what I'm saying. So I care about what I'm saying. But communication goes both ways. And it's very important. If I'm communicating with one other person, I care about what I'm saying, so that I want them to understand me. But I need to care about what the other person is saying, so that the communication goes both ways. It's a two-way street. And if it's not going well in both directions, then communication can break down. So it's not just about you saying what you want to say. It's also about you listening, so that the other person knows that you care about what they're saying. And if you aren't intentional about both sides of this communication coin, then, and I think this, I don't know where it's in quotes. I think this might be a quote from me, though. I don't know. I'd have to look it up and see if I can find it on the internet. But the lack of understanding between two people trying to communicate can cause conflicts and frustrations in working with other people if you don't intentionally plan and rehearse your communications both ways, what I'm saying and what you're saying to me. Chaos, entropy kicks in, and things wind down into chaos. So here's another important quote. And again, I can't take credit for this, but I don't have a citation, so I don't know who said this, but successful communication is far more than sharing information. You can share information with an email, right? But that's not really very effective communication. It's understanding the feelings behind the information. That's so, so important. And if you've ever had a conversation with me, I hope you can recognize that I try to do this. Yeah, you're telling me that this happened, or so-and-so did this, or the sponsor did this, or this one person on our team did this. Okay, I'm getting the message, but it's important for me to understand what's in your heart as you're telling me this. I need to listen carefully so that I can understand that. So, as I said, communication is a two-way street, and it's about you speaking effectively, which is a whole different class, and it's about you listening effectively. So tonight I'm talking about you as listener in a two-way communication cycle that you're in with somebody, you to a group or you to an individual. Are you listening effectively? So that's what I really want to talk about tonight. Oh, I'm going to switch. I hope this works. If it doesn't work, I'm sorry. I'm going to try to play a song. Do you know who these guys are? This is Simon and Garfunkel. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. They were really big back in the 1960s and early 70s, which is when I grew up through high school and college. Was in the late 60s and early 70s for me. And Simon and Garfunkel had a lot of really, really good music. It's wonderful poetry. Paul Simon did a lot of the writing of their songs, and they just sing. So I'm going to play a song that talks about communicating. Look at these lines. People talking without speaking, people hearing without listening. Okay, so anyway, this is just take a few seconds. It might be fun to, so I'm trying to play a video. I hope you can hear the sound. If not, somebody tell me, hey, we can't hear it. But can you hear it? 10,000 people. No answer. People talking without speaking. People hearing without listening. People writing songs that voices never share. No one dare disturb the sound of silence. Okay. Thank you for listening to that little musical tidbit. And I just threw that in for variety to try to catch your interest. But I'm a big fan of their music from back in my early years. And I don't know if you know that I'm a guitar player, but I learned a lot of their songs and sang a lot of their songs over the years. I just went to, doesn't have anything to do with anything, but at the end of October, I went to my 50th high school reunion, okay? Class of 72. And one of my best friends in high school was a singer, and we were in plays together. And every time anybody had a party, I would bring my guitar and we would sit around and sing. And most of the songs we would sing in high school, many of the songs were Simon and Garfunkel songs. And so when I went to this reunion a couple of months ago, Tim and I just sat around and sang these old Simon and Garfunkel songs. It was great fun. So anyway, this is about listening. And it's, I don't know, you can think about it. It's making the distinction between hearing and listening. And that's why I included that little song, because it's important for you to understand the difference. Hearing is a physical thing. The sound waves hit your eardrum and get translated into signals in your nervous system, and they go into your brain, and you're capturing the sound. Is that amazing? You know, just like light goes in through your eyes and gets converted into signals in your brain, same thing with hearing. Hearing is a physical activity, and your brain is processing the sound waves that are hitting your eardrums, right? That's a physical thing. Listening is a mental thing. So it is possible for people to hear without listening. What does that mean? Think about that. You can hear things without listening. And listening means that, well, here, I've just, the distinction is here. Your ears and brain are working to capture sounds. That's hearing. You are understanding and you care about what you are saying or what you're hearing. That's listening. And you should always keep that distinction clear, like Simon and Garfunkel say. So anyway, researchers tell us that we remember only 25 to 50% of what we hear. I think you might agree with that. There's a lot of noise going on, and it doesn't even register in your brain. And you might remember only a fourth or a third or a half of what you hear. So think about how that translates into whatever it is you're working on in your job or in your project team, when you're talking to your boss or your colleagues, your teammates, your customers, or even your spouse. If you're having a 10-minute conversation, they're only catching 5 minutes worth of communication. Think about that. So wouldn't it make sense to really focus on delivering your messages more effectively and listening to their message more effectively? And listening is a skill. Unlike hearing, which is a biological thing, listening is a skill that you can learn. And you can learn techniques and you can practice and get better at it. And if you learn how to listen better, you can improve your productivity, which makes you more valuable to an employer, right? If you are more productive than your peers because you're a better listener, then you're going to get promoted before they do. If you listen more carefully, you can really, really improve your relationships with the people that you love. Everybody wants to be heard. More specifically, everybody wants to be listened to. And if your loved ones know that you care and that you're really trying to effectively listen to what they're telling you, then that love is going to grow deeper and stronger because they know you care. If you're in a workplace or on a team trying to develop software, you can really greatly improve your ability to influence people and negotiate with people by being a better listener. You listen to what they say, you are going to be better at influencing them. Or if you need something from them and you're trying to negotiate something with somebody, if you're listening better, you're going to be a better negotiator. And of course, if you're listening better, you can avoid time-wasting conflicts and misunderstandings, which I'm sure all of you on your project teams so far this academic year since last fall, I'm sure you've run into conflicts and misunderstandings just because people aren't listening to each other. Huh? Am I right? So active listening is just it's a term that I throw in there with listening to show that, okay, I'm not just hearing you, but I'm really trying to listen. And that takes intention. I'm intentionally trying to be an effective listener. That is active listening, where you make a conscious effort to hear, and I would say listen to and understand not only the words that the other person is saying, but more importantly, understand their message. They're trying to tell you something, and it's good for you to understand. It's good for your relationship with them to try to understand, now, what is it they're trying to tell me? It's more than just words. Oh, this looks like a slide that's going to build as I click. So how can I actively listen? Number one, focus, which means don't let yourself be distracted by this or that. Just focus on the other person and listen, not just hear, but listen carefully. And what's the root of that word? Care. So if you know I care about what you're saying, I'm going to do a much better job of listening to you. If you know I care, then you'll know I'm listening. Fighting distractions. When somebody's got something to tell you, and if you're looking at your phone or looking at something else or looking in another direction or thinking about what you're going to say next, those are distractions. So when you're listening to somebody, just zoom in on what are they saying and how are they feeling about what they're saying. That's so important. This happens so easily where if you're in a conversation with somebody, working on some problem to solve for your project or something like that, and they're telling you something, instead of really actively listening to them, you could be thinking about what you're going to say in response. Well, don't do that. Don't think about your reply. Think about what they're saying. Your reply will come soon enough, but don't let yourself be distracted by what you're going to say. Rather, zoom in and focus on what they're telling you and maintain that focus on the other person. And it's good when somebody's talking to you to acknowledge that you're actively listening by giving them little bitty, subtle affirmations of what they're saying, like, okay, I understand. Yes. Okay, just little things like that. It's a technique that you can put into practice when you're really trying to listen to somebody. Try it. If you don't believe me, just try it. And instead of thinking about what you're going to say back to them, listen more carefully to what they're saying and offer them words of encouragement like, yeah, go on. I hear you. Yeah, I understand. Okay. What else? Nod your head. Yes, I understand what you're saying. And that means you look them in the eye. Eye contact is so important when you're listening. Is that one of my, yeah, eye contact. You can nod your head and you can make sure you're looking right in their eyes, and that then they know you care and they know you're listening, and you're going to have a much more satisfying experience of communication. Other kinds of encouragements, like, okay, tell me more. Or you can sneak in there, well, what do you think about this? And get them talking deeper and more about the topic. And it really helps to smile. And I don't know if you notice this about me, but I like to smile, and I try to smile when I'm teaching. Sometimes it's hard when it's like database stuff or SQL group buys or stuff like that. You know, nobody cares, but still I try to smile, because that helps you know that as a teacher, I'm trying to keep you engaged. So it's important for me to smile at you and understand that your time is precious. And so I'm giving you the best I can. So another good technique for active listening is for you to provide feedback to the other person to make sure that they know you're getting what they're saying. So you can reflect on what they're saying and then paraphrase. Paraphrasing is a really good technique to cement the effectiveness of your communication. So if somebody's telling me something, I'm listening carefully and I'm kind of recording what they're saying in my mind, then I can paraphrase. Oh, it sounds like you're telling me this and this and this. And that gives them that added encouragement to keep talking, because they know you're listening. Oh, it sounds like you're telling me this. Is that really what you meant? Or you said this. What did you mean when you said that? And that little kind of interaction there can dig deeper in that conversation, take the conversation to a deeper level where more effective communication is taking place. Defer judgment. Defer judgment. It's not your job to judge the other person for what they're saying. Your job is to listen and care. Okay. And it's so frequent in conversations, even that I hear around here with my family, where people interrupt each other. Well, that's a conversation killer right there. If somebody's trying to tell you something and you interrupt them because you think you already know what they're saying, well, that cuts off the communication, just kills it. So don't ever interrupt people, unless it's asking them to clarify, like, okay, just a second, you said this. What do you mean when you use that word? What's your, I don't understand. So can you define that? Something like that. It's okay to interrupt for further clarification, but you should always allow the speaker that you're listening to, let them finish their points before you butt in and start expressing your opinions or making your points. And you don't need to offer counter arguments. If your intention is to listen to them and effectively communicate, you don't need to debate with them and say, well, what about this? Or what about that? Or do you know this? Or did you know that? That kind of thing. It doesn't help. It doesn't help accomplish good communication. You know what? This stuff applies in the workplace, and it applies in school on a project team. It also applies in a marriage where you've got a committed partner and you're trying to go through life together, communication can be so difficult. And if you just follow these simple guidelines I'm sharing with you, it can really improve your communication. And it's not much, maybe, I don't know, of a testimonial, but this year I'm celebrating 45 years of marriage with my wife, and it has not been easy. It's been very difficult, but I really try to put into practice these communication skills with my spouse. And I guess if longevity and happiness is any measure, I guess we're doing okay. Anyway, here's 5 little communication techniques that you can bring into your conversations with the people you're working with or that you're living with or trying to get along with. Pay attention. Don't let yourself be distracted. Show them that you're listening. Eye contact, little words of encouragement. Yeah, I get that. I understand. Nodding your head, smiling. Give them feedback if they're seeking feedback. And sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're just expressing themselves, and you just listen and say, okay, I got it. I understand how you feel. Don't judge them and respond appropriately, like not with anger. Anger is a communication killer. Quick, a very quick terminator for any kind of communication. So no anger. Leave anger in the parking lot. This is a silly little diagram, but there's a lot of truth in here. And it came from mindtools.com, ComSkill Active Listening. This should be a good, yeah, it's SKLL, but whatever. I don't know if you can even see this clearly, but I'm going to go through it really, really quick. Number 1, pay attention. Look at the speaker, be aware of their body language, and ignore distractions. Number 2, show that you're listening. Nod, smile, say yes, from time to time. That encourages them to continue. Number 3, provide feedback. Reflect the speaker's words back to them. Oh, this is what I think you're saying. You're saying this, right? 4, defer judgment. Allow the person speaking to finish their point before you attack them with how you think you're smarter or better and your idea is better than theirs. You don't need to judge them. Just let them finish their point and listen, and you'll have better communication. Okay, 5, respond appropriately. Be open and honest and respectful of their opinion. Even if you don't agree with it, you still need to be respectful. But anyway, those are 5 nice steps. And then it just says, make sure that you really hear what the other person is saying. I think what they mean is listen. You're not just hearing, you're listening. It's a mind thing, not a biological thing with your ear. Okay, becoming an active listener can increase your productivity, improve your relationships, and help you avoid conflict. Man, what's that? That sounds great. Give me some more of that. So, how can you be a better listener? Well, it starts with you being aware of yourself, right? Think about, okay, how am I coming across in this conversation? And I don't want you to pass judgment on the other person, but you can kind of pass judgment on yourself. You can observe, how am I listening? How am I doing? Is this relationship going well? Is this meeting going well? Is what needs to be communicated being communicated? Am I listening, or am I just hearing? Am I passively listening, or am I actively engaged? And so as you're in any communication with anyone, think about how are you doing on your end to be a good active listener? So one of these things that I read said that there's 3 A's of active listening. Attention, meaning, am I giving, if you're talking to me and I'm listening to you, am I giving you my undivided attention? Adjustment. Well, I got slides that talk about each of these. So we'll talk about attention and then adjustment and then attitude. So attention. Oh, yeah, this is interesting. Think about this, that biologically, the part of your body that you're using to listen is your brain. And it's a lot faster than the part of their body that they're using to speak to you. Mouth, tongue, voice, air from your lungs. So your brain is going to work a lot faster. You can process information 4 times faster than another person can convey it. Think about that. Your brain works 4 times faster than their mouth as they're vocalizing stuff. So just think about what that means. What could you be, if you're listening takes 1/4 of the time, what do you do with the other 3/4 of the time? Well, you can think about what they're saying. You can listen instead of just hear. They've done tests that show that most people, the average people, listen with only 25% efficiency. So what happens to the other 75%? Well, you're missing it. A typical person can speak 125 words per minute, yet we can process 3 times faster than that. So you can process 500 words per minute while they're only speaking 125 words. So if you're a bad listener, you're going to get impatient because they're taking so long to make their point, and your brain's running ahead of what they've already said, and you think you know better than they do. So a poor listener can grow very impatient and kill a conversation. An effective listener can use all that extra brain CPU time to focus on actively listening. So you've got time. While they're talking, your brain can focus on actively, effectively listening to them. So adjustment. Well, if you're going to be an active listener, you got to understand that everybody you're talking to is not always the same. And this person might be this way, this person's this way, this person's this way, etc. Some people talk fast, some people talk slowly, some people ramble on and on. Some people are very focused and direct. So you got to be able to adjust to each speaker and their accent, right? I'm sure you've had experience through college because we have so many students from so many different places. A lot of folks speak with different accents and different styles of speaking, and you have to adjust. So maybe you need to listen more carefully because this person is speaking with a strong accent because English isn't their native language. Well, you need to adjust if you're going to be an effective listener. You might not like their point of view. Well, you need to adjust. If your goal is to have effective communication, listen carefully to their point of view and don't be thinking about reasons why you don't agree or how you can counterpoint their point or whatever. You might have to listen to somebody that you don't like, right? That happens a lot, right? I really don't like this person. I don't want to listen to what they're saying. Well, if you're going to be a good listener, ignore that. You have to adjust. You have to assess the other's style and adjust to it. So maybe they do ramble or they're spacey and they don't focus on the point. Well, you have to adjust to that if you're going to be a good listener. You got to be flexible and make room in your heart for their style and their approach and keep an open mind. And then you can be an active listener. An attitude. This is the third of those 3 A's. Every conversation that you enter should have a purpose. You should know your why for every conversation that you're engaged in. That sounds like something I would say. And if you know why you're in this conversation, that will better equip you to pay attention to that other person. If you know why, what do we need to accomplish out of this conversation? And you've got that why clearly defined, that will allow you to pay attention and adjust because you've got that attitude of knowing, why are we doing this? Well, I want to be successful in this conveyance of information back and forth. I want to communicate effectively. So in summary, this is good. It took 50 minutes so far. I'm on time. In summary, your communication must be intentional. It helps if you can plan things in advance, have a strategy, and have a strategic communication plan that after this conversation, we want to make sure that this information is conveyed and this information is received. So it's intentional. If you just relax and chat and expect good communication to happen, entropy kicks in and chaos will result. If you're trying to build relationships with other people, listening is really, really important. And you can actually become a better listener by digging deeper into these things I'm sharing with you tonight. And so here's just some of the things I've already said. I don't need to repeat them, but you can learn how and then practice active listening, and your relationships will improve, and it'll make your opportunities for communication a lot more effective. And then you will have better relationships and a happier life if you learn this stuff and put it into practice. I think that's it. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening to me. I hope you're still awake. And I hope that you find this stuff to be valuable. And I've recorded this thing and I'm going to put it out there on YouTube. Tell all your friends that if they didn't, thank you, Carol. If they didn't get to sit in on this live tonight, then I think they should go listen to the video, and maybe it'll help improve their lives. So thanks, everybody. Good night. No lecture live from me for the next 2 weeks because I have to go teach a seminar, and I need those 2 Monday nights to teach that seminar about, it's kind of a data science kind of thing. So I'm taking 2 weeks off of these Monday night lectures. You guys keep up the good work with your project teams. Let me know if there's anything I can do to help you. Okay, thanks everybody. Good night, and we'll see you in a few weeks.